Pete, I finally tried that 818
Yeah. You know, I get a kick out of it every single freaking time, and I'm not even sure why, but I just, you know what? Maybe because there's some other bozo who tried it, it didn't work out for him, and he had to bail. And he's a guy who's got kind of a funny wig. Anyway.
funny wig. Welcome to the Rebel's Edge, folks. Yeah. Pete's back. He has his wife out guarding the internet connection with a shotgun. So if
That's
those same guys come back.
The shotgun is put away. And actually, I'm coming to you from parts unknown, otherwise known as Minnesota, John. I'm up here for a little bit, doing a few things around the house, doing this and that, you know, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. Well, we welcome all of you. It's a pleasure to have you join us here on the Rebel's Edge. Yeah. He's Pete Najarian. I'm John Najarian. Jared is handling all of the duties for dancing animals on the screen, the fantastic futures and all that kind of stuff. And apparently the Bears still kicking butt, Pete, and taking names, I guess. Because
I don't know. I think the Bulls winning today, man.
Yeah, Jared, we're going to have to inform you about when things go up or down. Sometimes it's bullish or bearish. But anyway, folks, we're going to start off with the macro minute because we always do. Mm-hmm. If you wouldn't mind showing that credit card delinquency, Jared, that would be great, even though, of course, it's not great.
There it is.
What you'll notice is that we are headed towards the worst level since 2008 as far as credit card delinquencies. And I'm not trying to be somebody who's trying to start a panic or anything else, but we know consumer debt is high. We know their savings are low. And now we know that their delinquencies, paying late on credit cards and paying that horrible 24% on average, is really sapping their buying power. That's my macro minute, Pete.
Well, I'll just piggyback on you, John, by saying this. So the consumer debt now has crossed over 17 trillion with a T. That's a pretty big number. And oh, by the way, we've added 3 trillion with a T to that number since 2019, pre-pandemic. So people are out there spending. To your point, John, not able to pay, which is another bit of an issue. You talked about delinquencies. We're talking homes, we're talking autos, we're talking credit cards, we're talking school loans, all of that, 17 trillion. So when you're looking at these numbers of jumping up another 2 trillion for the debt, the U.S. debt, the consumer's right behind them, John.
Yeah, the consumer's experiencing a little, shall we say, duress. But that doesn't mean that that things aren't going to get better, folks. Right. Doesn't mean that they are getting better either, because we're on a path that is not sustainable. All right, let's talk for a second, Pete, about fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
Well, fantastic futures. The reason that we try to cover this, folks, is that futures do have an important impact. And right now, this is one of those futures that is up pretty big year to date. Coffee futures are up over 3% today. They're up 27% year to date. But as Pete has said, frequently when coffee futures go down, the price of Starbucks or any other coffee that jumped up because of the high price of coffee doesn't follow it back down when it goes down.
Absolute thing of beauty for the coffee industry. Those that own those breweries. Unbelievable. I'm going to hit you with this, John, because we've talked about this a lot. Gold and silver. Now, are they doing a lot? Not really, but gold has recovered decent. It's back up over 2,000, or it was earlier today. And silver has recovered as well, up over 24. So we are seeing a little bit of a move there. We've seen it go all the way up to 2,055 for gold recently. Then it dropped. And we've seen silver make that big move up to 26, 27, dropped. But here we are again. They're starting on that move to the upside. Just keep an eye on that.
Yep, we certainly will. So that was fantastic futures, folks. And now we're about to delve into some things that are not so fantastic, at least over at AI, which is the parent company of Chat GPT and all of the different iterations thereof. The stock is down hard today, and they came out with earnings that are just in line, and we thought that they would be, $72 million. Hard to believe that's a $5 billion market cap with $72 million in revenue, not profit. And they're saying, Pete, maybe by the end of next year, they will be profitable. But obviously, people were hoping for a little more bullishness, and they didn't get it from AI today.
Yeah, well, they're on the right path, John. When you look at what they've done from an earnings perspective, they lost 21 cents a year ago. They're looking for a loss. All of a sudden, they lost about 13. So that perspective, it's getting a little bit better. At some point, I do think they will be profitable. The revenue was kind of in line, but when they gave some of that guidance, they did miss, and that was something that people were not very happy to see. And the fact that the growth factor, John, gross margins as well, they went from 76% to 66%. So in other words, they're feeling a little bit of that squeeze. And, actually the stock has bounced back rather nicely. It was down over 20+%. Last I looked, John, before coming on, it was down about 11%. So it has recovered to some degree, but not very happy folks out there right now when they're going through and expecting the numbers to be like something like NVIDIA. They were nothing like NVIDIA, and that was the problem today for AI.
Yeah, they needed that guidance. They didn't get it. The 30% short interest, Pete. I calculated yesterday that the shorts had lost about $500 million in the past 5 days in AI. Well, they made a bunch of it back, but not all of it, because in the past 5 days, the stock was 27. To Pete's point, now with the stock back at 34.55, they're still down a good $7. It's just not $17 anymore. All right, let's move on to the next one, Pete. What about a little Chewy? We both have dogs. I have dogs and cats, 2 of each. And we get a lot of stuff from Chewy. And we're not responsible alone, but some people are cutting back on other expenses, but they're not cutting back on what they spend on their pets, which is kind of surprising, because in the past, when we've been teetering on a recession, we do see people even cutting back on their pets. That hasn't happened yet, Pete, because these guys blew out the numbers yet again.
Although when they talked about some of their guidance, John, they did raise it, but maybe not to the extent that everybody was hoping for. And when you talk about growth, they did say themselves, they said, hey, look, we're looking for growth internationally. We feel like we're at a certain level here in the United States, but internationally is where we really need to start picking things up and start getting a little bit more growth. When you look at the balance sheet here, John, it's pretty phenomenal. You look at their sales, they beat on that. They did a lot of things right. And I think, to your point, people usually will hold off. They do want to spend on their animals. So that does hang in there pretty good for the stock. But at some point, they got to trade down. They haven't reached that point yet. But we have seen that in the past where they finally say, you know what? I can't go with this deluxe dog food anymore. I got to get the kibble. And they're getting away from that. And all of a sudden, there they got with the kibble. But they will immediately jump right back as soon as they can. Because let's be honest, those dogs, those cats, whatever animals you might have, they're part of the family. That's the way things are. That's why this stock, I think, is not exactly, bulletproof, but it's one of those stocks that can hang in there pretty well for a long time.
And it has.
Yeah.
Let's talk, Pete, about Okta, because this one's identity management software. That's what they do. And boy, great earnings, Pete, and great guidance. But then they just get slammed. And as reasonably as I can say it, I'm going to say they plunged because the chief executive, CEO, warned about macroeconomic conditions. We've seen that with Macy's, Pete. We saw it with Advanced Auto Parts yesterday. We see it time and time again. That's why I was so surprised about Chewy, quite frankly. But this one trading to the downside hard today.
Yeah, just getting slammed. It is an amazing thing, John, to watch which stocks actually react in what direction based upon different things that they hear. And obviously, in this particular case, they went through their earnings, they went through their revenue, everything seems like it's hunky dory. And then all of a sudden, the CEO says, "Hey, man, these macro conditions, they do worry me. It's getting worrisome," which is a very, very honest approach. But with that honesty comes a little something called selling, with the stock down about 18%. So that certainly was the trigger, because everything else about this report, John, looked pretty daggone good. The problem was that little bit of darkness, that dark cloud that he cast on the economy, the macro picture, certainly did affect a lot about what people are thinking right now. A lot of people saying, you know what, I'll take my profits here. Maybe I'll find another place. Maybe it's in something in the AI world.
Yeah. Well, and again, I can't blame them, Pete. There clearly is a lot of selling pressure because it's traded 6 times normal volume today. And it leads us into the next one, Salesforce. Now, Pete, folks, is a friend of Mr. Benioff, and I'm certainly not going to talk badly about him or his company. You'd sort of be an idiot if you did, because shares are up 68% year to date. But they're not having a good day, Pete, on the earnings front, because the company signaled it isn't growing as fast as it is used to growing. And they're basically shifting focus to generate higher profits. We'll see if that's successful, Pete.
Yeah, you know what? You're exactly right, John. And Mr. Benioff obviously has been a phenomenal leader for a long, long time. These guys were the acquisition kings out there, just buying everything that they wanted to build themselves up into this big, huge, massive company. One of the other things, John, that a lot of people kind of looked past, well, I guess they didn't look too far past, because they sold a little bit today. And not a lot when you consider what you just talked about. How about that year to date? Year to date's phenomenal. But they're selling it a little bit today. Why is that CapEx up 35%? That's a bit of a problem. That is something that I think a lot of people went, whoa, really? Those are going to be some pretty big numbers. Other than that, though, John, it was a great quarter, 27 PE. And when you look at everything about the balance sheet, there's nothing really to worry about at all. Free cash flow of $10 billion. Are you kidding me? This is a great company. And I think on pullbacks, this is one of those companies that guys like you, guys like me, start saying, hey, this might be an opportunity. I just wish they would have sold it off a little bit more, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, Salesforce, the fact that they gave this, call it wishy-washy, some people say it lackluster outlook for future sales. I think this is one of those companies, Pete, where they really can do an awful lot with AI as well. Yeah. Palantir, by the way, speaking of AI, we didn't put it in the rundown today, folks, but that one has a pretty decent short interest of about 10%. And those shorts have lost close to $1 billion being short that name, as it went from $7 on up to 14. But it's been a great run for them. I wouldn't be surprised to see Salesforce or CRM get right back on that horse in the short term, Pete.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us a little bit about what sports headlines you're paying attention to today.
Well, John, we talk about baseball a little bit more because this time of the year we're talking about spring, right? And the football news is a little bit of not a whole lot going on out there, unless you're interested in where Andre Hopkins is going to end up, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. But here's the deal. The Tampa Bay Rays are still the best team in Major League Baseball. Now, we've actually covered 58 games by now, John, so it's not just like a flash in the pan. They come out of the gate and they're unbelievable. They're still unbelievable. There is one other team that is right on their heels, and that's the Texas Rangers. And I bring that up because it's pretty interesting to see how these guys are starting to move and getting a little bit closer. And oh, by the way, their run differential, John, is actually bigger than Tampa's now. Now, Tampa was in front of everybody without anybody being close, but the Rangers have been catching them. Tampa's won about 70% of their games so far this year. They're unbelievable at home with a 26-6 record. I mean, everything that you'd want out of a team with a payroll that's a whole heck of a lot different than the Yankees, the Mets, all these other teams that are paying out the big bucks. It's pretty impressive to see what's going on. I'll throw out one more at you, John. I'm starting to wonder whether Ohtani is going to actually be the first billionaire player, because you and I were kicking this around a few weeks ago, right? We were talking about, hey, his batting is doing this, but his pitching is doing that. If you combine that, he's probably worth about 700 million. Now, can they actually afford it? Probably not, but everybody's looking at him right now. Well, he's batting 270. He's got 15 home runs. He just got 2 the other night, John, yesterday. 450-foot shot. Actually, 459 feet was one of his home runs. In the next inning, he hits another one. He's now got 9 home runs over 450 feet in his career. Unbelievable run what this kid is doing. People need to know about it. It's why I keep sort of saying, hey, look, let's talk about Ohtani again. I mean, it's like Babe Ruth came back and he's playing in Major League Baseball right now. He's pitching one night, he's batting every night, and he's unbelievable at both.
He is a phenom, Pete, because as good as Aaron Judge is here in New York, because I'm in New York, folks, I'll be on Liz Clayman's show at 3:00 Eastern time today. I was asked to stay over. I did Kudlow's yesterday, and then Liz today, and tomorrow I'll do Charles Payne.
Nice.
But talking about Aaron Judge, since I am here in New York, Pete, I think it's really he's a phenomenal player, not just a batter. He's an all-around player, and I've seen him throw guys out with a rocket arm. Might not be Bo Jackson's arm, Pete, but it's pretty damn exciting to see him when somebody tries to take an extra base on a hit to the outfield. But Ohtani is a completely different cat. I mean, that guy, there's never been, except for Babe Ruth, a pitcher that hits like this, Pete. And I just want to drop back for a second, though, to Tampa Bay, the Rays, because they were playing my Cubs yesterday, Pete, and their bats had been sleeping. They hadn't got the support for the pitcher that they needed. And so it looked like they were going to lose up there in Wrigley again. But all of a sudden, the bats wake up, they come back and beat the Cubs 4-3. So that team, like you say, with a payroll that wouldn't even pay Aaron Judge's salary, is pretty amazing that they are able to beat teams that can put a huge cadre of top talent on the field. And these guys just beat everybody they play. First team to 40 wins, by the way, Tampa Bay Rays.
Yep. Love my Rays, John. I'm a Rays guy because I live down there. So I'm up in Minnesota visiting right now. All right. Jump into the NBA. Now, we are getting to the point now where it really, truly matters. And all you got to do is listen to Jimmy Butler, because they were asking him a lot of questions, John. Hey, what did you think about when you guys beat Boston? He goes, you know what? I knew we were going to beat them. That was expected. So anything else would have been a disappointment. And oh, by the way, I'm not done yet. I love the fact that we got the Eastern, Conference trophy. That's great, but you can have it. I want the big one. And he's never had one, John. He really wants one. Here's the interesting thing about what's going on. Now, they're the number 8 seed. I've talked about that. And the Panthers are the number 8 seed in hockey. And they're playing both of them at the same night in Southern Florida, down there in Miami. So it's pretty interesting, John. And here we got the Nuggets, right? Now, the Nuggets came through. They beat the Timberwolves. They beat them 4-1. They beat the Suns 4-2. They swept LeBron James's Lakers. And oh, by the way, Michael Jordan never was swept in a 7-game series. For all those out there who go back at me and say, oh, LeBron's the GOAT. It's like, really? Come on.
Nope.
Get real. He's not in the top 8, 10, maybe even, if you really start looking at real numbers, what they did and everything else. But how about Miami, John? So they're the number 8 seed. They had to play-in game against your Chicago Bulls, and they won. So they got to go into the playoffs. Otherwise, see you later, right? Now, they beat the Bucks. They beat them in 5 games. They beat them 4-1. They beat the Knicks 6 games. They beat them 4-2. They beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. Now, they were the top group out in the East, and they had to go and play there. They took 2 games. They came back. They lost a few. They go back up there. They win another game. They win 3 of the 4 games on the road in Boston, where Boston had one of the best home records in all of the NBA. So I don't know. What do you think about these Heat? What do you think about Jimmy Butler? Are they going to be able to get over that mountain, in other words, Jokic, to get to that championship?
Well, obviously, we both know that they're not favored to do that.
Right.
But Jimmy Butler and the rest of the Heat have been making it happen, so I wouldn't bet against them. I think it'll be a great series, Pete. For all the people that thought, oh, it would have been better if Boston was in there. No way. And here's one of the many reasons, Pete. Jimmy Butler, he's like 32 years old or so. He signed a 3-year deal for 146 mil. You know how much that was guaranteed? 146 mil. And a lot of guys, when they get that guaranteed money, Pete, a lot of times it's a third of the contract. Sometimes half is guaranteed. His entire contract is guaranteed.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about what they thought of him, and the way he plays right now with that guaranteed contract says a lot about his integrity and the fact that he's not focused on, oh yeah, let me buy this mansion or that yacht or whatever else. He's focused on a ring. And that's why this team is so special. That's not to put down the Nuggets. The Nuggets are favored for good reason. And Pete mentions the mountain. And that guy is, just like in Game of Thrones, the mountain, Pete, practically unbeatable. That guy can just play. He can ball. And that team, they were joking, Pete, when I was out there, that when I was moving my daughter out of Boulder, out of her student housing into her housing for next year. And they were joking on the radio, their sports talk radio station, about how the Nuggets, well, why even play the freaking Lakers? We know they're going to beat them. That's a really confident or overconfident group out there. But they are talented and they deserve the accolades they've got. I'm just saying, Jimmy Butler, there aren't a lot of players that you could guarantee him 146 mil and they'd come out and play like he has, scoring over 50 points here and there in the playoffs. That's going to be a fantastic wind up to the NBA season. And I think the ratings will be killer, Pete.
I think so too. I hope it actually does go maybe 6 games, John, something like that. It would be a lot of fun because nobody's expecting that. They're expecting a sweep by Denver, but the way Miami's played, I don't know. I really don't think that's going to be the case. Maybe I'll be wrong on that one, and that's okay. But I'll tell you what, John, going back to Ohtani for one more second, like the man said in Rounders, pay the man his money. I mean, they got to do it, man. That guy, I don't know what the biggest contract is ever. Maybe it was Aaron Judge when he signed his. Whatever Ohtani signs for, it's probably not enough. I mean, it's just amazing to see what the guy's accomplishing. So a lot of fun, a lot of basketball, a lot of NBA going on, a lot of Major League Baseball. Got that hockey thing going on as well, John.
I love Malkovich, Pete, when he's out there just playing the Russian and paid the man the money.
He's in those crappy sweatpants.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us. As you know, we don't do the show on Fridays yet. We only do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we will be back Monday. Until then, have a great one, everybody.